I chose this subject mainly because I have heard a lot from different people that the government of Kazakhstan usually does nothing for the development of our country. I believe all of you also have encountered that kind of people that think this way too. So a lot of people think that the government is not going to do any new reforms, any changes, because they usually like the current way, because they currently just ripping off the population and they are working just simply for their own pockets. And I actually do not think this way. I really believe that our government does its best for the development of the country, and it really tries to improve the overall wealth of the population. So, and there are a lot of examples of it, how the government works, how it tries to improve our current situation, but for sure it will be very difficult to give all the examples, and in this presentation I am just going to give a small example in the case of Baiterek that shows that government actually tries to find new ways, tries to do something, make some changes. So that was why I chose this subject. So before telling you about the current state of Baiterek, let me tell you a little bit about Samurq-Kazna. I believe all of you know what is it, the sovereign wealth fund Samurq-Kazna. The fund was created Samurq-Kazna fund was created in 2008. And of course by the decree of our president on some measures on competitiveness and sustainability of national economy. So the fund was created by a merge of two national companies. It was the holding for management of state assets Samurq, and the second Kazna Sustainable Development Fund. So it was two different companies, and in 2008 the government decided to merge them. And the idea behind the merge was that the government just tried to decrease expenses on the management of these companies. So, and it's clear actually, that if you have only one company, you have only one management, so you don't need to pay for another managers of other companies. So yeah, in one way, seemed like it's a very reasonable way to merge these two companies. But there was a problem. I mean, at that time the government didn't really understood that there was a problem, but since they decided to merge them, the problem was that the two different companies, that Kazna Sustainable Development Fund and Samurq, holding for management of state assets, had two different goals. So the Kazna Sustainable Development Fund was a financial development institution, so it had different subsidiary companies such as Development Bank of Kazakhstan, Investment Fund of Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan Investment Promotion Center, and those subsidiary companies were focused on development of social economic condition of the country, meaning that they invested, their main goal was investment to the social economic development of the country, and they are not like focused on high profit. So the main goal was development of the country. While on the other hand, we had Samurq, which actually was a managing company which owned, let's say, strategically important companies such as Kazakhstan Temir Yolu, Kazna Gas, Kego, Kazakhtelecom, And its goal was to maximize profit and maximize the efficiency, and as it is written here, maximize the efficiency and competitiveness of these companies in the world market in the long run. Meaning that the goal of Samruk was to increase profit of these companies. So, like Samruk was for profit, while Kazna was for the development. So, and after the merge, there was a problem. So there was a conflict of interests, conflict of goals, let's say, because one of them was focused on social economic development, while other was interested in, let's say, gaining higher returns. So yeah, that is why the new created company, Samruk Kazna, in fact had some conflict of goals. And after some time, the government actually realized that there was a conflict. So the management of Samruk Kazna realized it. So it was difficult to manage the company when you have two different goals. So one goal is to make investments to some economic sectors that are not highly profitable, such as agricultural or maybe mortgage sector, which are not highly profitable, or choose other goal, which was to increase the profitability of companies. So that is why in 2011, to avoid this conflict of goals, the government of Kazakhstan and then the management of Samruk Kazna decided to transfer the management of some subsidiary companies, namely the Development Bank of Kazakhstan, Investment Fund of Kazakhstan, and the Entrepreneurship Development Fund DAMU, to different ministries. So because the Samruk Kazna decided to focus only on maximizing profit, and the financial development institution was transferred to different ministries. But in general, Samruk Kazna kept the ownership of these companies, but management was transferred. So that was one of the ways to solve this problem. But at that time, it's clear that now we have more management than we had before. So now we have different ministries that manage these companies, and we had Samruk Kazna. So that's why it wasn't really smart to have different ministries managing these companies. So that's why in 2013, of course, again, our president decided signed a new decree on some measures to optimize the management system of development institutions, financial organizations, and development of the national economy. And according to this decree, government had to create a new fund which would manage these financial development institutions, such as Development Bank of Kazakhstan and so on and so forth. So, and in 2013, after this decree, the Baiterek National Management Holding was created. So that was the beginning of the national holding. And most development financial institutions, such as Development Bank of Kazakhstan, Investment Fund of Kazakhstan, Housing Construction Saving Bank, Bank, also known as, and Kazakhstan Mortgage Company, DAMU, was transferred from Samruk Kazna to the Baiterek Holding. So, and now we have, again, as it was before, two different companies that manage two different institutions with different goals. So now the government at that time understood that it is not very smart to have, let's say, different companies with different goals in one fund. So that's why they decided to create a new fund. So, and that was the beginning of our holding Baiterek. So in general, the holding today has 11 subsidiary companies, and they are divided into three main groups based on their missions. So, well, the first group includes companies that provide finance, investment, and export support to large projects and enterprises. So, for example, Development Bank of Kazakhstan, Khazna Capital Management, Investment Fund of Kazakhstan, the Kaz Export Garant Insurance Corporation, and the Center for State and the Private Partnership Project Support. So, meaning that the first group mainly focuses on large projects and enterprises. So, it's a biggest group of the Baiterek holding. So, as I said, there is 3 groups, and the next group is a group of companies that provide support for the development of innovative activities in the country and support small and medium enterprises, and implement governmental roadmap of business 2020. So these companies are DAMU and the National Agency for Technological Development. And I believe all of you know what kind of fund is DAMU. It's a fund that supports small and medium enterprises in our Kazakhstan. It's one of the main institutions that support small and medium enterprises. And the National Agency for Technological Development, it's an agency that support R&D and innovative activities in the country. And the last group is a group of companies that are involved in the implementation of projects in the sphere of real estate, housing construction savings. So, and it's clear that it's Жилстройсбербанк, Kazakhstan Mortgage Company, Baiterek Development, and the Kazakhstan Mortgage Guarantee Fund. So this last group focuses on mortgage and housing construction. So those are 3 groups, and those are 3 main, let's say, missions of the holding. So now let's quickly look at the results of the holding. So unfortunately, we don't have yet annual report for 2017 because they usually publish it in the middle of a year. For example, it will be published in July or August of 2018, the results for 2017. So that's why we have only for 2016. And the report for 2016 shows that in that year, the consolidated assets of the holding was 4 trillion tenge, and the biggest assets of the holding is Development Bank of Kazakhstan. So it actually accounts for 61.5% of the holding's total assets. So which more than about 2/3 of the holding's assets. So it's the biggest asset of the fund, and the Development Bank of Kazakhstan is followed by Жилстройсбербанк, DAMU, which has 14 and 10% of the assets respectively. And other subsidiary companies have less than 10% share in the total assets of the holding. And as I said before, it is the holding is a, let's say, financial development institution, so it invests a lot. So, and as a proof of that, more than half of the fund's assets are loans to customers. So it lends a lot, and meaning that more than about 2.4 trillion tenge is are loans to customers. The fund not only directly support the social economic development of the country, but also supports through second-tier banks. For example, it supports the economy in the amount of 0.5 trillion tenge through second-tier banks. Second-tier banks, it's meaning that it's commercial banks. So, and one of the mission of the holding is to invest to non-extractive sector of the economy. So, and as it is written here, about 1.4 trillion tenge was invested into long-term crediting of the non-extractive sector in the country. So, which is about 30 or 40% of its total assets, so which is quite big amount of money. And to show the dynamic, I can compare it with 2014 and 2013. So for example, in 2013, the holding only invested about 80 billion tenge in the non-extractive sector. So, and in 2014 it was like 230 billion tenge. So right now we can see that the loans to non-extractive sector grew really significantly. So, which shows that the holding really focused on the non-extractive sector. So also that non-extractive sectors account for about 57 of total loans of the fund. So which shows that more than half of its total loans goes to non-extractive sectors. So as I said before, also fund supports small and medium enterprises through its subsidiary companies, but its consolidated report shows that only 2.7 billion tenge was invested into small and medium enterprises in 2016. So it's a very small amount of money because, for example, to corporate clients was invested about 1.5 trillion tenge, which is a huge difference. But as I said before, the holding also supports small and medium enterprises through banking system. So it actually provided 0.6 trillion tenge to small and medium enterprises through second-tier banks. So it's about, it's also written that about 30% of total support small and medium enterprises in the country comes from the holding Baiterek. And it's also important to note that fund allocated about 390 billion tenge in the form of mortgage loans through Жилстройсбербанк and Kazakhstan Mortgage Company in 2016. So it's also quite big amount of money because since, let's say, 2014, when the prices of oil went down and we had serious problems with exchange rate and inflation, most of second-tier banks, I mean commercial banks, stopped providing mortgages. So even biggest banks, so such as Halok Bank, also didn't provide mortgage loans. So because mortgage loans usually is a very risky type of loans, because usually like banks provide these loans like 10 or 20 years, so it's very risky, and especially in the time when let's say the country has huge financial economic instability, so we had high volatility of inflation and exchange rate, so the banks cannot really forecast future of its interest rates. That is why most banks stopped providing mortgage loans. So at that time, almost 2/3 of total amount of mortgage in the country was provided by the holding Baiterek, so through Жилстройсбербанк and Kazakhstan Management Mortgage Company. So as it's written here, 67% of total amount of mortgage in the country was given by the Baiterek holding. So in general, that was everything that I was going to say. And as I said in the beginning, actually the government really does its best to improve our lives. So at first the government tried to decrease management expenses by just merging two different companies. But the idea failed because the government failed to foresee that there will be conflict of goals. but government was able to understand that there was a problem of there is a conflict of goals, and decided to decided to divide this new Samut Kazna to two different companies and create new Baiterek. And it actually, the government through Baiterek invests a lot on small and medium enterprises and supports social economic developments by providing cheap mortgages, and it also supports non-extractive sector of the country. So yeah, I believe government definitely does its best and invests a lot in the development of the country. So that was it. I hope I give some new information to you about the fund. Thank you for your attention.